Hey, welcome back to the show Rise Up Nation. We're here for another episode of Rise Up in Real Estate, and we have a great guest coming on today. He's here. I'm so excited. And clearly, of the four of us, I have the brightest ring light. I mean, look at me. I look like I'm plugged in like a Christmas ornament. I moved my lights around this morning, and I'm sorry. My name is Tad, the host of the show today. We might have one more guest hopping on here, but we're glad the listeners are here. We've got people, just FYI, this is running live on YouTube and about 7 or 8 social channels. People can come on and ask us questions. If you're there, speak up and say, hey, we'd love to know who's there. The other thing Ed will do is we'll record today, or today's live. So if you mess up, you just mess up, and we hear it. If you mess up before I publish it as a podcast next Monday, we'll edit it. So that'll be our full-on posted podcast going forward. But you're talking to a group in coastal South Carolina. I want to introduce our panel here today real quickly and I'll let you introduce yourself in just a minute. Welcome back, the lovely Lawton Fulford. Introduce yourself, sir. How long you been in real estate? What's your role here and why you're on the show?
I'm not sure why I'm on the show. I've been doing it about 1.5 years. I love it. I lean on Ed and his team for a lot of things, so I'm looking forward to this. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. You know what? We're happy to have you here, and I'm glad you don't know why you're on the show. That makes it better. People don't believe me when I say that. And then if the listeners want to throw questions, we can. We're going to do a speed round in a second and ask some questions. But the reason we created this podcast and live stream, just FYI, is Rise Up in Real Estate to find the extra in the ordinary people. So I'm going to talk to an extraordinary person next, and my good friend Ashley Lamborn. Ashley, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you're here?
Yeah, so I'm Ashley Lamborn, and I am the Director of Agent Development here with RE/MAX Southern Shores, Essential and Professional. So in quite a few markets. And what that means is that I get to be at the front of the classroom and listen to myself talk a lot, and hopefully impact agents' businesses in a positive way. So I am on the podcast to just kind of like Lawton. I don't know why I'm here. Just here to contribute, listen, learn, and maybe help some people along the way.
Awesome. My business coach would be so proud of me that 2 of the 3 guests that we have on the show today that are hosts actually have no idea why they're here. So I have to get a little bit more clear with my direction as a leader, apparently. But finally, the guest of honor for today's 45 minutes show, or hour, however long Ed wants to go. Ed's like me. He has the spiritual gift of being able to cram 5 minutes worth of content into 10 minutes. And so he and I going on this show, this might be the longest episode of all time, but you know what? We're going to go with it. So we actually had, if you guys haven't been watching lately, last week we ran an episode that we had, there was a recording, Tracy Huffman, hi. There was a recording of a guy doing an AI training. It was 1 hour and 50 minutes long, but it's right there on Tyler Morton, my good friend, who's probably got in touch with AI more than anybody that I know, other than Ashley. And Ashley, remind me to share an idea with you later. I have a great idea. I want you to remind me. But we had that episode, and then we did 3 episodes recorded previous to that, talking about I almost said the resurrection of RE/MAX. That makes it sound like it was dead. The renaissance of RE/MAX with the 3 big leaders now at RE/MAX Corporate, which are really good episodes, 45 minutes, good drive time listening. But today, we are going to dig in with somebody who really doesn't need an introduction, I don't think, because Ed's been around a minute. I appreciate that about Ed. One of the things I appreciate most about Ed is that he's been doing what he's doing for nearly 30 years. Like so many people these days take their eye off the ball. They change industries. They change focuses. They follow the next squirrel is a popular word for us, like the next silver lining, silver object. But I've known Ed for a long time. I was actually looking back at my emails, Ed, and I know that you and I did a few loans for me when I was an agent, like back in 2012, 2011. So we go way back. But I appreciate that about you, Ed, and I just want you to open up your playbook for us today a little bit and give us some advice. Introduce yourself, what you do, and then I'm going to ask you a few personal questions, and we'll get right into the show. And Ashley and Lawton, don't wait for me to stop talking. Just jump in if you have something you want to say, okay? So Ed, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tad. Nice to see you, Ashley and Lawton. And yeah, thank you for having me today. I've got the text from you, and I was wondering for years if I'm ever going to be asked to be a guest on this podcast or this show, and it was like an early Christmas present. So so I appreciate that so much. I have my whole family watching. I've sent invites out to 1,000 people to see me on this super podcast thing. So yeah, appreciate it. No, yeah, Ed Bocchino, Revolution Mortgage. And yeah, as Tad had mentioned, it's weird to say, but I think it's been a little bit over 30 years now that I've been in the business, got in the business right after the military. Well, slightly after the military. Had to kind of find my way for a little bit, but it's interesting, and you're right, Tad. It's weird the way folks stay, to see folks that stay with it for a long period of time. But in our industry and in like a lot of industries, and folks can look at it this way. A lot of times it's just perception. There's so many levels of where you're at within an industry, right? So you could be setting more shorter term goals to achieve this, achieve that, kind of get to where you are today. So it's been interesting the whole entire ride, and every day it's something different, and that's what keeps it exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Tell me, you're married, right? We gotta hit the high points. You're married. You have 2 beautiful daughters. Is that right?
I do. Thank you. Yes.
How old are they, and what are their names?
Yeah. So Kylie is 10, going on, I don't know, 32. But and Leah is 8, or going to be 8. She's 7 right now, going to be 8 in less than 60 days, and probably going on 8. Quite frankly, she's still my little baby. I know you have your kids, and we've I think we've all been there. Lawton, I don't know if you've been there yet, Lawton, but one day you'll get there. But it's amazing just to watch them grow. I mean, Kylie is definitely a little woman now, right? But Leah's still my little baby. I tell her, I said, you're the last one I could sit here and snuggle with for now. But it's amazing. The kids are just absolutely great.
Yeah, I know that I see you in the pickup line every once in a while, picking up the kids from school and stuff like that. And we forget that we all live lives outside of work, don't we? Like Ashley, Lawton, we all have so much other stuff going on that we get to work and we forget all that. So I wanted to highlight that. I know that your wife is like mine, super supportive behind the scenes. She has to be because of the irons that you have in the fire. What is your title at Revolution Mortgage? Just for those that don't know. Hey, Carrie from Somerville, look at Sue O'Shea's in Disney. Sue, I am honored. Disney is like the ultimate marketeer, and you picked us at least equal to Disney. God bless your soul, Sue. Thank you. Ed, so what's your title at Revolution?
Yeah, so branch production manager. So I have a partner, Cole Williams, Cole, and we're both branch production managers here. So we both have produced, for quite some time. We also built a team around us from operations to sales that also have a production team and operations team. We have a total of 7 loan officers now, and I think a total of 16 staff members altogether. So yeah, we're bringing.
Awesome. That's great. So that's going to get to another point that I have in a few minutes, your title, because you're not just a loan originator, and I want to talk about that later. But let's, Ashley, Lawton, put you on the spot. Is there anything you want to know about Ed that you don't know already? You got any random questions that you want to ask him? I've got a few more, but I'll wait if y'all can think of one. Lawton, use your creativity. What do you want to know about Ed?
What's your favorite sports team? Doesn't matter what sport.
Oh, good Lord. That'd have to be the Jets, Lawton. I know, it's tough. It is tough, my friend. And it's interesting because when you're in New York, right, or New Jersey, call it New York, New Jersey, we were right outside the city where we lived up in New Jersey. You're either like the Mets and the Jets, or you're the Yankees and the Giants. It seems to like that's the mix when it comes to who you root for. But baseball just never really stuck. I'm a big, right. I watched the World Series game last night, right? When it's to the end, and we're in playoffs or shooting for a championship. I'm definitely more engaged with all sorts of sports. I love sports, love it. Everything I learn about my business and about working with folks in regard to growing business is all related around execution, preparedness. So sports teaches me a lot. And I relate that to my business and work through workshops with folks in regard to, that sort of competitive mentality. But yeah, Jets, well, look, I bet against them last week and right in my fantasy football and they crushed it. I think they won by 1 point, right? Against old Joe Flacco, who I did pick as my quarterback last week. He did good.
I was going to say that you're undefeated. The Jets are undefeated this week.
Yeah,
so
this
far.
week they are. Yeah.
All right. Ashley actually knew that the Jets beat Joe Flacco last week. Right, Ashley?
I'm not even actually positive what sport we're talking about right now.
That's amazing. Ashley, what kind of creative question do you have for Ed? Something that, before we get into mortgages, which is I know is what most people came for.
So I'm going to stick on the sports theme, believe it or not, but I'm going to ask because I don't remember if both of Ed's kids ride or if only one of them rides. And this is interesting to me because I have a niece that actually rides on her equestrian team in college. And I just think it's a fascinating sport.
Yeah, by the way, I saw that post and I wasn't sure what the relation was there. And I'm like, I've been next to Ashley like every single week. I'm next to Ashley and she has yet to ever, knowing that my kids ride, or at least Kylie rides, right? And how serious she may be about it. I heard nothing about this person that's getting first place, taking pictures, ribbons and flowers, and you've never said one word about it.
It's a world that I don't understand, and I just cheer her on. The equestrian world is much like the football world to me, but I'm just her biggest cheerleader from the stands, so I can't really add a lot of value for your kids to chat through it with you, but she can.
Yeah, no, well, that's the introduction, right? It's all about who you know. But yeah, so Kylie, Kylie, my 10-year-old, she's been riding for a few years, a little bit longer on and off prior to COVID, and then COVID hit, and then there was a pause there, and she's been back at it now, just about a couple of years, and she rides English style, and it's a discipline, it's a sport. We went up to North Carolina to a show over the weekend. Segwith, I think is what it's called. And it is amazing when you watch these folks. They're called hunter jumpers, right? The jumpers are, jumping over poles, right? Basically, or walls, whatever it might be. And to see, these kids that might be 10, 12, 15 years old, even just a mom, or an older woman or whatever, right? That's riding. You are controlling a 12 to 1,500 pound animal, right? At high speed, jumping in the air several times throughout 60-second track, sort of, if you will. And it's just absolutely amazing, the control and discipline that they have, and they become one, right, with their partner. In this case, it's their horse. So I love it for Kylie. We've tried a few different things, dance and soccer, tennis, things like that. And I don't push it. I love sports. I love the discipline. I love something that, whether it's a team or it's individual, that they can stay focused on as young kids. I think it what's the word, matures them quicker, right? And it's a great for the mindset. But she loves it. But yeah, there's a shirt I saw a picture of a shirt on social media that had a barcode on it, and it said, "Horse Dad, scan me for payment." And that's about what it's like, I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not a free hobby. Tracy asks, how long have you guys been at the beach, Ed? Tracy's asking.
Hey,
Tell us
Tracy.
that story.
Yeah, we first came down here in 2005. Had some family things we had to go back to New Jersey for in 10. Came back down in 18, and have been back here ever since. So a lot of time that we spent here, ownership and property here since 2005. Yeah, love it.
Awesome. I changed. Could y'all see me change from the circles around our faces to the squares? Okay, I was trying to figure out who's in the background. Ed, who do I have back there? Is that Paul?
Oh no, that's Aaron. Did you do that
Oh,
on
hey, Aaron.
purpose to see Aaron? Yeah.
No, well,
Aaron's
yeah,
my
kind of.
personal.
I mean,
He's my personal LOA assistant, and so yeah, he takes care of everything on the front end. I like him right here, so I can keep an eye on him, and he knows.
That's awesome. He's wearing the swag too. You guys, more than most, you guys do swag the right way. Like, you are always branded. You're always wearing your thing. And I knew you back when you wore suits, coat and tie, like all the time. And now you're dressed more like me. Like, I have to find a button-down shirt to do a video because I've got t-shirt and jeans on almost all the time.
Well, I need to find a button-down shirt that fits to do video. Yeah, that's the other thing.
Stitch Fix is amazing because I don't know why they do this, but in the wintertime they send me 2XL shirts, and in the spring they send me XLs. So I guess they know my pattern.
Yeah.
I don't even have to tell them, right? I mean,
they've got the data. They know what's going on, no doubt.
So let's open up the vault because it's critically important that we know what the future holds. Like, we have to know, Ed, what the future holds in mortgages, because if, as an agent, Lawton's an active agent, and I know you're surrounded with agent, you call them not even partners now. I think you're calling them, they used to be your clients. Now you're changing it to, I don't know, collaborators or whatever the new word is going to be in 26. I know you've been teasing us about that a little bit, but there's been so much talk this year about the stagnation of the rates, and they went up, and oh my God, they went way up to 7 and almost 8, and now they're back down a little bit. And I didn't know this, but today's the day I think the Fed's going to cut again, possibly, and one more time they are going to say before the end of the year. So we're kind of, what do you think? Like, tell us a little bit from your perspective. Maybe talk about how the applications, are they really up? I'm hearing that. What do you think the rates will do? Just give me your philosophy, because I have a philosophy, but it's not very good.
Yeah, no, and it's probably about as accurate as mine is, right? Because, when I got in this business, somewhere in or around 2001, right? My crystal ball broke that day. It was over. First day at the office, it fell off my desk. Crystal ball broke, and I knew nothing from that point. But look, I mean, always have our thumb on the pulse of sort of, what's happening. And unfortunately, as much as folks think that they can, dictate or determine or think of what the future may bring, everything's sort of just a lag measure, right? It's already happened, and then we know what it is. When it comes to locking interest rates, most of our closings happen generally, within an average of probably 35 days, right? 30 to 35 days, somewhere in or around there. And the big question always is, should we lock, should we float? And I go into about a 15-minute, history lesson to, at the end, come out saying, what are we going to gain or what are we going to lose, right? And it just really depends. We have been flat, and flat's not that bad. And if you were to look at, a great barometer to kind of see what mortgage rates have been doing, outside of looking at mortgage rates, because, you can find rates 1,000 different places, maybe 10,000 different places on the internet, but none of it's accurate, right? Every person's situation is different. And what you generally see, I'm sitting here looking at, the Mortgage News Daily, which is a great resource for interest rates. Mortgage News Daily, great resource. It's true. It's what it is, but there's still raw rates that they show, right? There's no additional loan level price adjusters based on an individual situation, right? So, we're seeing an average of probably somewhere primary residence today, 6.5, 6 5/8, right? But if we were talking, 3-4 months ago, we might have been seeing an average of 7 1/8, right? I mean, so there's been some pretty good movement. That's a 3/8, half, 5/8% movement in just a short period of time lower. That's big, but I think we're sort of on that downward trend. We've kind of been thrown a curveball here with the shutdown of the government, where we're just simply not seeing all the economic data coming in on a day-to-day basis that we normally would see, that is moving the mortgage rate market, right? I mean, on any given day between note auctions, between unemployment, between ADP, between CPI and inflation numbers and GDP, prior to the shutdown of the government, you're on a roller coaster, right? And one day you own the bridge, next day you're hanging off of it when it comes to interest rates. If you were to look at a 10-year treasury yield that we were saying is a great barometer for what mortgage rates do, and just look at a graph over a 1-year time. If you Google 10-year treasury yield, go to the CNBC link, a graph's going to come up and you can say how far out you want to see that graph. I mean, it is like, the teeth of a saw, right? Up and down, up and down, up and down. So look, I think we're sort of heading in a good direction, but there may be something happening when the government does open back up and we start seeing some other data coming in. We're missing a lot of data that would normally be driving the market. And that's why we've kind of been flat. If you look at the 10-year treasury yield over the past week or since the shutdown of the government, we've kind of been between, 398 and 402 on the 10-year treasury. So there hasn't been much movement.
Yeah. Ashley
That's
Lawton.
a lot of information, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I was just getting ready to say, hi, Heidi. Nice to see you. That picture is interesting. I want to talk about that more. I don't know how I figured out how to get pictures to pop up on here, but this is very cool. We're learning every day. As I listen to Ed talk, it's probably a little bit like when somebody asks me, tell me about your passion. Tell me about your mission. What are you here to do? After about 3 minutes, I can see most people just gloss right over because it's not theirs. It's mine, right? And Ed is certainly, if you couldn't tell listeners in the first 10 minutes of listening to him talk, it's nice to have an expert who has their hand on the pulse. That's one thing you can say about Ed because you can tell by the way he talks. But Ashley and Lawton, what did you hear in what he just said? Interpret it to me, for the layperson. Put it in regular terms. Like, Lawton, you're an active realtor, and Ashley, you are with them every day and actually leading them. What did he just say?
I guess my biggest takeaway is that we don't have a crystal ball on what rates are doing. We have been in, I think, a market ever since COVID that has had so much unpredictability to it. And I don't even have as much of a grasp as Ed has on what it is specifically that influences day to day. Are the rates going to go up a little bit? Are the rates going to come down a little bit? It's been talked about, I think, frequently on the news and on social media that when the Fed cuts rates, it doesn't equal a cut for mortgages. There's a lot more that goes into it. And for me, it's just nice to know that there's somebody that is masterful in that lane, because that's not precisely what my lane is. I have a basic understanding of it, and Ed's got it down pat.
That's a good word. What do you think, Lawton? When he was
I thought
talking?
he was rapping for a second with all the letters he was throwing out. But
we should have had some music behind that. That's not a bad idea, Lawton.
We can do it. We can do it.
But kind of going behind what Ashley said, I think you can tell when he talks about it that it's not stressing him out or making him really worried or bothered about what interest rates are. Like you can tell, and he hasn't said this yet, but you can tell that interest rates aren't the biggest thing. Like that's not the top of his worry pyramid or whatever you want to call it. But you can tell there's something deeper, and I think we'll get into that. But I think that's really cool to have somebody that's so in touch with it and thinking about it that's not where they spend all of their mental power. If that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And actually, every time Lawton talks on this show, I realize that I'm only going to be the host for a short time because that's very profound. He picked up something. Are you growing a mustache, by the way, Lawton? Today?
No, but I don't want to host this show, so you're good.
Yeah, Ashley. Yeah, I wasn't talking about you. That's why Ashley doesn't have very many lights. For those of you that can't see, if you're listening to the podcast, she's like her and Ed are kind of in the dark. Ashley's trying to hide her mustache. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. Very perceptive, Lawton, that you would pick up. And I think that's an important trait for all of us to pick up on is customers, clients, people, spouses, children, friends, pick up your energy almost instantly, whether they recognize it or not. And if you've got a loan originator, a processor, agent, friend, spouse, like I said, that is calm and kind of got their head on straight and isn't going to get panicked. The opposite of what happened in my house a few weeks ago when Archer hit his head. And I mean, Grady hit his head and a little bit of blood came out. And my 8-year-old, we had obviously never talked about in our large family how to handle, a tragedy or trauma, because my kids lost their mind and all of a sudden it was chaos. But for Lawton to pick up on Ed's calmness is important for everybody to recognize. You need to have a person like that that's just level-headed. I'm interested, Lawton, and Ed, why don't you elaborate on this? Lawton perceives that there's something more to all of this than just the rate. Like, rate in your mind, is it genuinely secondary as you do your business? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I really do think it is, because, and I said this to someone yesterday, it happens to be what it is, right? I mean, when you look at from our perspective, and what makes it easier for me to kind of, I want to say gloss over it, but just talk about it as a matter of fact, is, ever since the implosion of the housing industry, back in 2008, a lot of regulations came into play that never existed before. And 99% of them were exactly what was needed in our lending industry, right? We needed to protect the consumer against predatory lenders. And we saw what happened, and forget the housing implosion and pointing the fingers at, whose fault it was. Frankly, everyone says it was subprime, but in the end, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were allowing 5% down, 680 credit score with verbal verification of employment, right? So it went far beyond, subprime lending, and obviously a lot of greed and a lot of people making a lot of money. But those regulations that came into play, issued by the FHFA, by CFPB, TRID laws, Dodd-Frank laws, all in place to protect the consumer, really leveled the playing field from a pricing perspective, which was great. I can't give Ashley 8% and give Lawton 7% because I like Lawton better. When all of their credit scores, loan to value, debt ratio, everything were the same, why should there be any disparate pricing, right? There should be no disparate pricing. So, the conversations in or around interest rate are so much easier in today's world, because it just is what it is, right? Every bank and every lender in the race to zero. And we know what that's about, right? When it comes to having a product, selling a product, and having competition, right? Everyone's trying to find where's the value, right? What's the cost? What's the value? And everyone's generally kind of right there. Every bank and lender is going to generally be within 0.125, maybe 0.25%, biggest swing ever, right? But 0.125 of each other on any given day. And the costs are going to be within a couple $100 of each other on any given day. So, in the end, and my focus has always been, as I've gone through a process, as part of a meeting I'm going to be having today with a bunch of local affiliated business owners to the real estate community. We're having a lunch today, talk about this coalition and this alliance that we're looking to build into 2026. It comes down to the experience. That's absolutely it, right? Whether you are selling widgets, selling real estate, selling mortgages. And Ashley, you've heard this before, right? What's the ultimate goal? So, when pricing's a level playing field, when costs are a level playing field, for the most part, people are going to want to engage with people that they feel comfortable with working in. And my value proposition isn't that you're going to get the lowest interest rate. It's that we spend every day in our business trying to think about how do we create the absolute best experience in home buying ever in the history of buying a home ever in all mankind. Because when you think about setting a goal, that's it. That's the only goal. Everything else falls, below that. So the fact that the industry has moved towards more of a level playing field from a cost perspective, rate perspective, the people that are winning are the people that are paying attention to that experience. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. And sometimes that experience, even if we weren't in this level playing field, would outweigh a difference in price from another competitor.
Yeah, I can't help but think, what if the real estate industry regulated the way that the mortgage industry has over the past 7 or 8 years, or 10, 20 years, whatever. how would it affect? Because it is about the experience. That's very wise, and part that experience starts with that calmness based on knowledge and experience, calmness. You're peaceful. You feel like you're in good hands, which is really cool. I want to just throw this comment up here. Dervila. Hey, Dervila. Glad to have you on here. Can you guys see that comment, Ed and Lawton? Do you guys see it?
Yep.
Hi, Lawton. When's our social media class? Ashley. Also, do we see short sales coming back anytime soon? I'll throw that to the group and see who wants to jump on that.
Well, you guys, let's start with real estate first, because I happen to have 2 in my pipeline right now. But you guys would likely be seeing that before I'm seeing that, maybe in some listings or while you're doing property searches for some of your buyers are doing research on listings. So I'll leave that to Lawton and Ashley for now, and then I'll start.
Yeah, so we just recently have had a couple of agents wanting some refreshers on short sales because they are seeing them occasionally right now. They certainly are not prevalent, back in 2007, 2008, foreclosure, short sales. There was, there were agents that pivoted their entire business to be an expert in those fields so that they could still come out the other side of that real estate recession, doing great in their business. They had to pivot and they had to understand it. They had to work it. And that's where they took their business. Whereas before, maybe they were focused on first-time home buyers or new construction. They just had to change their niche. I don't see that right now with agents just going all in to become an expert because they need that tool in their pocket. But I have now had a couple people say, I need to brush up on this. So I'm actually in the process of putting together 2 to 3 agents that did handle those frequently and have them educate all of the agents here on best practices and what does it look like and what do they need to be aware of. So we're on top of that so that we can prep them to handle it, but it's not anybody's, majority of business by any means.
Have you run across it yet, Lawton, at all? What about your social media class? What in the world's Dervila talking about? You better answer that question, or she's gonna follow up.
That's up to Ashley if she wants to put me on the schedule again or not.
Yeah, we've had a request because Lawton keeps putting out these amazing reels and Dervila wants to know how to do more of that. So yes, Dervila, I got to get with Lawton. I got to get it on the schedule because his first one was so fantastic. We had agents walk out of the room with a reel posted to social media who had no idea how to do it before. And he just made it very simple so they could run with it.
That's awesome. Dervila, have you seen anything about short sales out there? I've got a laughing emoji. Do you know who Marissa? Oh, Marissa Young's on here. Trey White, Sue Griggs, O'Shea, Carrie Collins. And Dervil, if you have any experience with short sales, throw a comment back up. I'd love to know. And Carrie says short sales back in the Charleston market, not a ton, but we're seeing them. So this is interesting to me, Ed, that this would be a thing because all I've been hearing is that half of homeowners have no mortgage or are very equity strong. But I have always wondered, what did the buying power of a 2.5% interest rate do for people a few years ago that now they can't quite afford that monstrous mortgage payment, or that they got out of hand, even though they had a smaller rate. So the short question from Carrie the other day kind of caught me off guard, Ed, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I think. It's a different world, right? So in 2008, when we were dealing with all of that, roughly in or around that time, you have to remember there was very limited equity that folks had, right? Because people were buying in droves because the guidelines were so loose. You could buy a second home at 10% down, primary at 5%. You could still get, and the verification of employment wasn't there. It was a time bomb waiting to explode, right? The guidelines have been tight ever since, they realigned the guidelines after the housing implosion. There's just so much more skin in the game today, right? So, I think we're going to see some short sales. I think the short sales are more a byproduct of investors that bought, and oversaturation in investment properties and less demand for folks to fill those seats, right? I don't think from a true second home perspective, right? Like you said, why would that happen if someone's got a 3% interest rate? How are they? But to buy an investment property, they were probably 20, 25, percent down, for the most part. So they don't want to walk away from that, regardless of what the market's doing, as long as an investment property, someone is paying the bill, right? As long as they can get it rented. So, it's not so much, I think, primary resident, true second home. And I could be wrong because there's always a situation, right? Life event that occurs. Maybe, you run into an unfortunate situation. It is a primary home, no doubt. But I think if we looked at deep into the data, the short sales are likely going to be coming from more on the investor side, simply because there's a lot of investment properties that are out there and not as many seats to fill them up, right? If you will, as far as tenants go, or renters go.
Yeah, that's interesting, because one case doesn't dictate a trend. But when you hear the word short sale, like Carrie says, we all freak out. We're like, oh my God, are we going back there again? And let me remind Carrie and everybody else, we actually thrived then as agents. We equipped ourselves. I remember Lori White just saying, you know what, this is what it's going to be like. So I'm going to do it the best I can. And she helped a lot of people in desperate situations. And it was amazing to watch. It's interesting. I just thought of, Ed, as you're talking, and Ashley, you and Lawton can verify this. So I've been doing this about 25 years, and there's always been change in the industry. There's always been movement. There's always been things that come up in the news. But to me, and I don't know if it's because of social media and the how quickly we get information or what it is, but it seems like there's a lot of changes going on in a small amount of time in the last few years, right? Like big things, like the lawsuit, and like companies joining up, and Zillow buying a mortgage company, and Redfin and Rocket Mortgage getting in bed together, and all of this. It seems like as soon as Lawton got his license, all heck broke loose. I mean, I don't know why, but would you agree with that? Like in your business, Ed, do you feel that constant change, or is it just steady, go the course, and kind of keep your blinders on?
There's change. I don't let it get to me. Everyone's talked about technology and what it's going to replace, and that's been talked about forever, right? I mean, the real estate industry was supposed to have no more agents left, right? I mean, for the most part, everything's going to be sold online, and people want to be part of a relationship, right? I mean, so I don't ever see that coming to fruition. But there's also always consolidation, right? So you talk about Zillow, you talk about Redfin and the consolidation and Rocket, and that's just what is, from a society perspective, is going to always occur, unfortunately, right? That middle gets pinched, and the consolidation to the top, it's the Walmart effect, right? Really. And that's, unfortunately, I don't think that's ever going to get reversed. But look, I think the big changes from our side was when the FHFA, who oversees the government subsidized entities, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, right? When they instituted loan level price adjusters on second homes, specifically for resort markets, not just our market, but resort markets all over the nation. That was going down the highway at 110 miles an hour, and then someone yanking the e-brake, right? From a mortgage lending standpoint, that's what that was about. And at one point prior to that, and this was, I think it was 2022 when they put those FHFA changed those guidelines for second homes. Prior to that, you'd buy a second home, and the interest rate might be, if all qualifications were the same, might be 0.25%, 1/8 to 1/4% higher than a primary residence. There was a point where folks were buying second home 10% down, right? And it was easy peasy. And then these loan level price adjusters go into effect. And by the way, you can look them up, right? It's all the guidelines for, by the way, all the guidelines for all mortgage lending is on the internet, right? So if you have a question, you can call me. You can also just say, hey, what about this, right? And the actual guidelines going to come up. But if you look now, it's like a 4.125 price add-on for 10% down second home. And when we had uncertainty in the markets, we had risk being pushed into the interest rates because of the volatility of the markets, call it on Wall Street, right? And you had those loan level price adjusters put into play. You couldn't lend a second home at 10% down without getting a seller concession from the seller to offset the points that the buyer was going to have to pay, because they can't pay more than 3%. And the points were 4-5% in points. So you couldn't even legally lend someone that wanted to do 10% down at one instant in time, right? Until time went by. The volatility reduced a little bit. So, some of the risk was being baked out of the interest rates. The interest rate should have been lower, but there was so much volatility and risk and unknown in the market that it took up a lot of space, right, from a pricing standpoint. But, now that a lot of that risk has been baked out, we've seen some consistency. We can now get to 10% down at a reasonable level, but you still have these loan level price adjusters. And I posted something on Facebook the other day that the FHFA is revisiting those loan level price adjusters. So what does that mean? I don't know. But if they were to disappear, that just that will help refinances of folks that did close in the 8s at the height of the market, right? Because you're not still paying extra points to get there, right? It's got to make sense. The break even's got to be a short period of time for it to make sense. So that was the FHFA, instituting loan level price adjusters was probably the biggest thing that occurred, over the last few years.
Okay, great. I don't know if you guys can hear something exciting is happening in the office here. I don't know if y'all can hear it or not. Maybe, I hope not. It sounds like there's a party that I'm missing and I don't love it. But I wanted to say hello to Erica. I appreciate you being here, Erica Phillips. We had a great conversation yesterday. Dervila, thanks for being on here. If anybody else has any comments, throw them up there. We'll address it. Ashley, did you and Lawton have anything else you're thinking about you want to throw out there before I just ramble on?
Yeah, I have something kind of swirling around in my head right now, because as Ed explains all this information in such an articulate way for people to understand, I think an average consumer needs maybe a checklist of their most important things to be aware of and to ask about, because I just see this industry as a whole, like almost there's so many components that you just mentioned, Ed, that if you're a first-time home buyer, it's a hurdle to even pick up the phone and talk about buying a house, because you think, I don't understand the complexity and I can't get into this until I can understand that information, and I'm not going to sit down and learn that information. So I think that it would be a great conversation to have, to say, if you're just thinking about getting into home ownership and you haven't done that before, or your first investment property, you need to lean on somebody that you can really trust, knows the process, first of all, because not all lenders are created equal. Not all agents are created equal. You need that in your corner. But how can we help them have the conversation where they can feel like, have enough information in front of me to feel good about making this decision to move forward, and I don't have to be stuck with not asking the question because I'm too intimidated with the numbers?
Well, I think that's great. And, I wrote that down, by the way. And I'm not a sticky pad person, but in that, as powerful as that statement was, or that thought was, I had to use a sticky pad to write it down on. Anyway, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And frankly, we're looking at that right now. And Ashley, right, during the Business Unusual segments that we do, we talk about erasing the things that are bringing you backwards, right? Having to repeat doing something if you just did it right the first time, and creating that experience, right? You save time by not having to go backwards to rediscuss it again. And so we're putting together something in regard to that for your clients, our clients, right? From the mortgage standpoint. But I'd have to speak a lot less if I just put one thing together and gave it to them and said, hey, read this and then call me back. right? And then we can talk about it. I mean, that's interesting. That's a cool thought.
I love that. I just went to Ed. Remind me after this, and Ashley too, and Lawton. Actually, all three of you were on my mind when I went to this business masterclass recently, and a lot of what he talked about was anticipating exactly what Ashley just did. Anticipate the questions before they come. Like, what is the consumer feeling? What are they thinking? What are their fears? What are their joys, confidences? As you get to know all that, you can craft your message to answer a bunch of those before they ever get asked. And Ashley's point, they're probably not even, this might be part of our problem, they're probably not even coming to the table because of doubt. They might be super qualified, they might not even be scared of the rate, they might be scared of the environment.
Mhm.
So I think that's a great point. If we could figure out, Ed, you and I, we should do we love to talk. Nobody might come to this, but we should do a seminar together. Like, let's do I don't know, let's think of a name and put it together, and we let Lawton and Ashley tell jokes, and you and I could speak on some topics, and it'd be popular. Probably 5 people would come,
Well,
whoever
if
our
you're there,
families
probably
are.
10. If for me, probably 5. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, we
And
God.
would
there's 3
make,
right
you'd
here,
make your
so
staff, you'd make your
I'll
staff
invite my
come. That
2
would,
kids. Right. So
yeah,
I
I have
just,
enough kids to fill the room.
I think there's all different types of people, and when I look at this from my own personal lens, number one, I'm incredibly analytical, and number two, I have a low tolerance for risk. And so if I'm the consumer in the market, those two things could prevent me from ever trying to figure it out. And so somehow bringing the level of that hurdle down, I think could really open up possibilities for a lot of people. And that would be incredibly rewarding and satisfying to see more people be able to get into the realization of owning something that is theirs.
Well, I think the biggest problem is, and you see a lot of agents, especially new agents that get in and they're thinking about how am I going to, get in front of people, right? And some people have the good idea of putting together, a first-time home buyer seminar, and like one person shows up, right? And I think it's on average probably, right? But I think it's the message, right? And if it's something that was driven by Remax, right, and we really sat down and crafted this thing, and every single agent within Remax, right, saw the value in it, and they brought one first-time home buyer. It would be the largest first time each, right? It would be the largest first-time home buyer seminar probably in the history of the world, right? To have 50 people, right, would be amazing. And you guys have, geez, I think close to 300 or so agents, right, that work with you. So, to your point, I think that's something we need to look at. And it's a great value add for the agents. And if 50 agents brought one person, right, one person, local person, to the table or on a Zoom call, it would likely be the largest first-time home buyer seminar ever. And look, whether it's for first-time home buyers or it's first-time investor, right? I mean, you can have multiple segments for it. Or the person that's thinking of retiring and not retiring, right? There's three different, segments right there. So I think that's I think we're on something here, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate, Lawton. I'm going to hear what you're thinking, but I appreciate that you've said history of the world like 3 times. You don't do small stuff. Ed cannot. He can do granular, but he is like he's going to. I got a friend, Charlie Foxworth, the same way. His mission is like world domination. That's the end of his mission statement. So I appreciate that. Lawton, what are you thinking as an active realtor? You're listening to all this nonsense. Tell us practically how to use it.
What part of the nonsense are you referring to?
All of it. Anything you want to highlight? Like what's most important to you about this conversation?
I actually had a question, a more practical question for Ed that I was curious about, and I know some answers, but I think he might have more than I would know. But what are you seeing currently that sellers are able to maybe utilize or lean on that can make them as competitive or even more competitive than new construction in a market that a lot of people are thoroughly worried with interest rates? What are some things you're seeing that maybe can help them compete on the mortgage side or any other area?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a combination of just about everything that you can do, right? I mean, in this world, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? And this is why I talk about experience. And Ashley, we talk about this in Business Unusual all the time, right? Um, with the advent of online searches, most and I could be wrong. You guys are the real estate. Well, I'm just going to put it out there. Don't throw bricks at me right now, but. Most people are coming close to most home buyers are coming close to identifying their own property. You know what I mean? I'm doing search. I know every home that we bought, right? I'm online, I'm looking, and I like this one, and this one, right? And so I'm as the consumer, I'm driving that, that 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 thought down to what I like out of there. So it's not, I'm not taking anything away from the agent, because to me, I think from the agent standpoint, it's more there's so many moving parts in purchasing a home that can put a home buyer or selling a home, put them at major risk if they don't have the right representation. Forget identifying it. Identifying a home's easy. Taking that process from contract to close, right, is where you need you guys, right? Because I've seen both sides of it, and I've heard all the headaches of having no representation, right? So to me, look, price is price. I mean, that's that, right? You've got to be where you need to be from a price perspective. All the technology used to highlight the home, to all the relationships that you have, to push and highlight the home within the real estate community here locally and out to other areas where most of the people are coming from, right? I think that's huge value, to the seller, no doubt. From a mortgage side, we offer money towards closing costs for a potential buyer, right? So we try to support the selling side. One point I was like, we do so much for the buyer agent. How come we don't do anything for the listing agent, right? So we came up with up to $2,500, right, towards closing costs. It's a percentage of the loan amount. So we've done that. But other than that, I think another value to a seller is what's their next move, right? That not many people really think about or talk about, because if they're selling, you've got at minimum a 50-50 chance that they're buying something else somewhere else, right? So preparing a platform of knowledge and process for them, in the beginning stages, I think it's a huge value. Hey, we're thinking about selling our home, right? They could be a year out from selling their home. How do we prepare them for that? Where are you looking to go? Have you, just like now you're turning into a buyer, not just a seller, you're also turning into a potential buyer. The same questions I'd be asking. Are you paying cash, or are you looking to finance your new home, right? If all I'm focused on is the listing side, I'm doing a disjustice to that seller, right? Because there is a next chapter for them, and it could be renting, and maybe there's something I can do to help them with that. It could be buying, whether it's here at the beach or it's in Wisconsin, right? And with your relocation platform that you guys have access to, I can bring value to that. So I think there's a lot of value that can be brought to the seller outside of, in part of working to get their home sold. Price is obviously always number one, but start that conversation early. If they're thinking about it, there's a lot more things that I think a realtor can do to help support what they're about to do. I hope that answered it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was great.
I went that way.
No, that's
Do you
awesome.
have any suggestions for him, Lawton, on what else he could add? Anything? What do you hear, and what would help the most?
No,
to get deals done?
I think that's super cool to go deeper and to think about the next step. I think there's a lot of agents in our area, but I would assume the whole country, that aren't at all worried about the next step.
Well, the first question is, well, how much are you looking to sell your home for? Right? Not, hey, or look, selling a home is one thing. There's something that happens when you do that, right? Mm-hmm. What is that plan? And the reason why is because this is how our team works. We want to understand all of that, right? Understanding everything is going to help us leverage all the resources we have to make this process the best process you've ever experienced in buying or selling a home. Done. And see what they say, right?
And the more
I'm also sitting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ted.
No, go ahead, Ashley.
I'm just sitting here also thinking about being able to communicate a message for buyers agents to also understand having a rate incentive from the seller. So don't change your price from 410,000 to 400,000. Instead, offer up that $10,000 rate buy down, because sometimes that bridges that gap. And so my mind is over here just, we've talked about it so many times, it's just kind of landing a little differently with me today on this conversation. So I made a note here that says resales with rate incentives. Like, that would be a fantastic newsletter to put out. If you were an agent that had that conversation frequently with your sellers to, compete with new construction, to Lawton's point, because that's what new construction is definitely waving as the shiny object, is the home warranty and the lower rates. So we could communicate it and educate people more that everybody wins with a rate buy down more than a price reduction. And I think that the general public doesn't always understand that. So we have to be able to advertise it in a better way to bring people to those resales. There's no reason why a seller can't buy that, offer up closing costs to buy the rate down and be at the same rate as the new construction home across the street and have a win-win for everybody. The buyer's monthly payment is less. The seller ends up netting what they want to net. We've all accomplished the goal at the end of the day. We just have to shout that message from a megaphone to get enough people to hear it so that everybody wins.
Yeah, and I have that discussion all the time with agents and buyers and agents on the listing side, right, to talk about that, because there's no guarantee the rates are going to be lower in a year from now or 2 years from now, right? There's just no guarantee ever, right? We also were, basically 3 years away from another election, right? If you look at Fannie Mae and you look at, let's just say Fannie Mae right now, they're looking at maybe a rates around 6% by the end of 2026, right? So, I mean, it's not like we're looking at, that trajectory, right? We're going to have movement. It's going to be up and down. There's going to be, an average of where rates are at. Maybe it drops a little bit below, 6 to some level. Maybe it's 6.25, but on average, they're saying maybe 6%. But, but they said that before. Right. And here we are. Right. We're having a good couple of weeks now. Right. But that could change tomorrow. Right. So what I love about the rate buy down, and to me, it's all about break even when I'm talking to folks. Right. Because if you don't know what it is, if your par interest rate, just for example, is 7%, that means you're not paying us any money for a lower rate. We're not giving you any money in a lender credit for a higher rate. Right. So par pricing is just 7% today. That's where we're at. Depending on the day, depending on the economy, depending on the investors, depending on Wall Street, depends on how much it costs to buy down that interest rate, right? And the normal equation that, call it 5 years ago, was every 1% of the loan, 1 point, every point you paid would lower your rate by about 0.25%. Well, it's all relative, the savings per month is all relative to the loan size, but on average, you're talking about over 5 years to break even, to maybe save, and the other thing people don't realize, every $10,000 right now is maybe $65 a month, right? So that's a whole nother conversation, right? Well, I don't want to offer this because this, and I say, listen, don't do anything in spite of yourself. If you really love that property and it's $10,000 more to get this property, it's $65 a month, it's 10 grand for the rest of your life. Right. I mean, over a lifetime, is that going to stop you from getting the home that you absolutely love? And I put that out there, right, to buyers. But the point is, there's no guarantee the rates are going to go down. Right. So if we can get a concession to buy down interest rate and depending on where the market is and the client qualification, sometimes, and I had it yesterday, that rate buy down is about 3.2 year break even. To me, that's hedging my bet. Right. I would spend as much money as I physically can legally to buy down the rate as far as I possibly can if I'm going to be within a 3-ish year break even, because there's no guarantee I'm refinancing. And if there's going to be a point that I'm going to refinance, it's probably not until about then anyway. So if all I did was break even, I'm good with that. If I win because I bought down and I'm within the 3 years break even and rates never went down for me to refinance, and now I'm good for the rest of the term of the note, then that's a win. So the buy down piece, the seller concessions, it's huge. It's every conversation I have with a buyer right now, or an agent talking about what can I do to incent.
Interesting. Actually, I know you have to head on to another obligation. If you do that, that's fine. I just wanted to make one more comment, and then we'll wrap up since we're right at an hour. When you go to, I went to the doctor a couple of months ago with my knee hurting, and I walked in. The first thing they did was, I told them my knee hurt at the front desk. First thing they did was take my blood pressure, my temperature. I was like, my knee hurts, right? But and then they did some other diagnostic things, and finally they started looking at my knee, and I was like, everything else is fine. Well, the interesting part about that is that's what attorneys do when you go in and you say, hey, I want to do this or that. They start with this, tell me the story, tell me how we got here. And for some reason, realtors aren't very great at that. Like we see a problem and we just want to solve that problem rather than knowing what the story is. Where did it come from? Because who knows? My blood pressure could have been high. Maybe they found something else, but they want to know the whole history, family history, fill out 40 forms. We don't do that in real estate. We say, hey, I'm going to do it the cheapest I can, get you the most, just trust me. But once you understand layers of that story, I think the more you talk about it, the more all of the fear goes away. The more they feel like they're with a trusted advisor and they can follow you through the madness. Kind of. I mean, I don't know how Lawton does this at 23 years old, but I feel like his customers probably and clients are very comfortable with him. They know that he's going to lead them the right way because he cares more about the relationship than the transaction. So I think the lesson I've learned in this conversation, and I think we should do a seminar seriously about this very thing. We could fill the room, I'm sure, because Ashley, what you said is so true, but there's probably people that aren't even getting the information that they deserve because they're afraid. And their fears are not justified. They need to know
it's not being communicated the right way. It's not being.
That's right.
I bet you. I bet you. I know Lawton, right? It is what it is, and I have confidence in saying that. And just like folks tell me, if I apply for something, I'm a consumer too. If they say, well, you've got to stand on one foot, twist around 8 times, and then hold your hands in the air, and then you can hit submit. I'm like, okay, that's what I'll do. Right. I mean, so if you could speak, with knowledge and with confidence, and we talk about this, I keep saying business unusual, right? We talk about it. The more I understand something, the more confidence I have. The more confidence I have, the more I want to talk about it. The more I talk about it, right, with confidence, the more people understand it, and I will be able to create, be the facilitator for whatever it is that they want. They're going to trust me. Right, because there's sincerity and there's confidence behind it. And I bet Lawton's the same way. There's, we're not salespeople. We're facilitators. We're not selling anything. Someone wants to buy a house. I'm not throwing tire strips out on the street, right, and pulling people over and saying, well, now I'm going to come show you a house, right? They know what the kitchen looks like. They know that's a bathroom. They're either going to like the house or they're not going to like the house outside of special amenities or something like that, right? That may be there. So we're not selling. We're facilitating. Right. We're professional communicators and we're professional facilitators, how we facilitate that transaction. Once you perceptually change your thought, your mindset in or around what your true responsibility is, and you understand it and you internalize it and you go bring that message out to everyone because you're so confident about it, that's where you get the traction. That's where you get the conversion.
And I think Tad's doctor analogy, that's brilliant, because when you go to the doctor, what do? They talk to you about a bunch of terms you don't understand, and you nod your head until you get to the end and you say, so what do I need to do when I go home so my knee feels better? Like, you need for them to have the expertise. They know all the fancy terms, and then you need to know who you trust to say, just go do this, and then this is the direction we're going to head in.
And we're not in the most trusted industries, real estate and lending, just because of the last 20 years. But anyway, great show today. Ed, tell us how, man, I had on my list, I wanted you to talk about business development because I know it's your heartbeat. And I wanted to talk about AI a little bit. So we'll do another show. We'll do another one. See you, Ashley. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Ashley.
Tell us, Ed, how we can reach you. If anybody listening out there needs a partner that they can have that is excellent in what they do, how can they find you?
Sure, yeah. Cell phone, 843-655-8078. text, call. You'll get an immediate response either which way. And we're just here to help support your business.
Awesome. And you're not going anywhere. That's what I love. If
Not
you ever
yet.
do, it's going to be onto an island to celebrate the end of your career. So we're proud to be with you. Lawton, we appreciate your input. You're always the wise sage. It should be the other way around. Like you should talk all the time and not have any depth to it. But unfortunately, I'm doing that. And then you say like 4 sentences and it's all the content that gets replayed over and over and over again. So I love that. Appreciate you guys being here. We'll put Ed's contact information in the show notes. Ed, this will air next Monday. You can go on YouTube and watch this now. It'll be there. You can watch the recording, but the edited version will be on Spotify and Apple Pod and all that next Monday morning for everybody to hear. And look at that app on the bottom. He mentioned Mortgage News Daily. Since you told me about that a few months ago, I got that app on my phone and I just look at it periodically. It's very helpful. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Rise Up Nation, for being here today for another episode of Rise Up in Real Estate. And we look forward to seeing you guys down the road. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Lawton.
Awesome. Thanks, Tad. Thanks, Lawton.
Yeah.